Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Reverse Sweep Show. As ever, this is your host SS. Joining me, as ever, is my co-host AB. A lot of cricket to follow. India triumphing quite straightforward in the series versus West Indies. But now focus shifts to the series down under. But we have got the Women's World Cup going around as well. And we did a lot of content around it also. We'll link some of the in the show notes. But AB, what has been capturing your attention?
Definitely the Women's World Cup. It has been such an interesting tournament, hasn't it been? Just recording a few hours after the Indian women's team collapsed under pressure against that English side. It was a match to be won, and we lost it. And this will put a lot of pressure on us going forward in the tournament. But then, as you said, so much of cricket going on around the world. The men's team facing the Aussies at Perth wasn't a very good welcome back to cricket for either of Rohit Sharma or Virat Kohli, but I'm sure they will do better in the coming matches after getting some match time after so long. But yeah, it has been a very interesting time. Otherwise, for the world cricket, what about USS? What have you been following? And more importantly, what are we going to talk about in this episode?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the second test match as well between South Africa and Pakistan. Of course, the Women's World Cup capturing all the primary attention, so to speak. Interesting to see how South Africa responds to Pakistan and Rawalpindi. Also got an interesting T20I series. I hope no more washouts in New Zealand, England. So yeah, a lot of cricket. But today, I did mention it. India doing a white ball tour down under, three ODIs followed by five T20s, and yeah, Kohli and Rohit returning. So there's a lot of eyeballs and interest in general. And we thought to look back on the storied history of India Australia encounters and the great series that they have had in the past. It has become, as we were talking off here, shinier and shinier as the times have passed, and it's the elitist, the two strongest cricketing nations, if you count the entire ecosystem, the financial muscle, also the cricketing muscle, and the general interest in the game. And we thought to do a storyline episode. So, AB, how are we going to go about this one?
Quick timeout. If you are loving this dive into cricket's wild twists and turns, hit that like button and subscribe to the Reverse Sweep Show.
And if you've got that one friend who can't stop talking about cricket, share this episode with them and bring them into the squad.
Yeah, as you said, it is one of those rivalries which has only gotten shinier with time. So we can talk about 80s, we can talk about 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now there are so many matches, so many stories that we can speak of. Not many other rivalries have given us that, and we have seen that. Maybe talk, for example, India versus Pakistan, it completely lost its shine over the last few decades. But this one, so we have so many stories to talk about, and we are focusing on ODI cricket because the upcoming ODI series, which has gotten so many eyeballs. So we bring three of our favorite stories from the last few decades between India and Australia. Three from my side, three from SSS side, and we talk about them. We go in the order, increasing order of impact of those matches. And yeah, with that said, SS, over to you. What is your first story?
Yeah, so for my first story, we go a decade back, a little over the decade back, talking about the 2013 bilateral series between India and Australia. So Australia touring India, India world champions, so the champions, trophy champions, Dhoni's captaincy. Sachin has retired from the game, and then you have got Rohit Sharma, Shikhar Dhawan, and Virat Kohli. So the new age of Indian batting, the great Indian batting talent, but now uh, making sure that whether they can compete and win a lot of games for us. And this was the era in which a lot of changes were happening in the ODI game as well. This was the era where you had mandatory uh, two catchers within the overs. You had a batting power play, and after the 40 over mark, you can only have four players outside the 30-yard circle. So a lot of runs being scored, Indian pitches as well. Australia, meanwhile, after winning three World Cups in a row, lost out to India in the 11, did not win the 13 one. So you were going through some transition period as well. Michael Clark, of course, that team went on to win the 15 World Cup, but Clark wasn't captaining. George Bailey was the captain. James Faulkner, Mitchell Johnson, you would remember that. A lot of battles with India and Australia. But this was a series where the chase master came to be known. I mean, of course, 183 against Pakistan and all that, but this was the series in which Rohit and Dhawan and Kohli clicked together, and they what a way they clicked together. They were Australia made 316 one game. They chased it down with one wicket. down. I think both of them scoring centuries. Rohit made, I think, 140 odd. Kohli made a 52 ball century. I think still, I think probably the fastest ODI century for an Indian.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then
Until Mandhana recently broke that record, but that was in the
exactly, that's a good call out.
women's
That's a
format.
good call out. Yeah, yeah. Shout out to Smriti Mandhana and the Women's World Cup. Also, in one other game, they made 350, 355 again, and India again chased it down. In the final game, India made 386, and Rohit Sharma hit 17 sixes, breaking Shane Watson's record of max sixes in a game, made a double century. So, yeah, lot going around in that. But I think what I remember is India finally won the series 3-2. There were two washed out games, 7 game series. But the kind of domination, the kind of runs, the kind of chases that happened, and you knew that ODI cricket and Indian batting was in really good hands because Dhawan and Kohli and Sharma were really taking it all together, and we knew that we were going to be in for a ride for the next 10 years, and what a ride it has been. And it's a great story arc. Now they are touring down under, maybe the last time together, and they have won World Cups, they have won T21 and then the Champions Trophy. But I think this series holds a lot of importance that Australia, for the first time when playing against India in bilateral, you knew who were the top dog, and the top dog was India and not Australia.
And plus, we found the top three, right?
Yeah,
After Sachin going
yeah,
out, after all the greats going out, the top
right.
three finally clicking and
And they were,
dominating in the way they did.
yeah, and they were fairly consistent. Play till 15, 17, Champions Trophy as well. The 19 World Cup till Dhawan got injured and KL Rahul had to
That
come up.
that was a match against Australia as well as us.
And Dhawan made a century in that game in the 19-1, but then of course got injured and everything.
Yeah.
So
And
uh,
was that the last match that Dhawan played in a big tournament? I
I guess
think
so,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say,
Yeah.
yeah, he played a lot of COVID era tours to Zimbabwe and Sri Lanka, where he was captain the side as well. But most definitely, I think, yeah. But yeah, shout out to the top three. We won that series 3-2. But yeah, I fondly remember it that, yeah, Kohli and Sharma are here to stay, and they're going to take us to many, many, many big triumphs in their cricketing journey. So that was my first story, AB. I have to pass it to you now.
Yeah, this is a few years before your story. So I take us all back to 2007. So just to give a context of where Team India was, because this was a time of flux, of transition, big time transition in Indian cricket. 2007, we had just lost the World Cup, 50-over World Cup, in the worst possible way that anyone can imagine. And then we won the 2007 T20 World Cup, the inaugural edition, in the most remarkable of fashions. And with that World Cup, someone called Mahendra Singh Dhoni also announced himself as a captain of this Indian team. And with the ODI team going through all that flux, we also had a test team that went down under and had a very gritty, a very tough tour. We won at Perth the first match, and then we had Monkey Gate scandal. We had a couple of tough losses. We eventually lost the series 2-1. But
Yeah,
now, after that, comes the CB series, the tri series between India, Sri Lanka, and Australia. And this is what I'm going to talk about. A lot of the greats from the team had gone out. Dravid, Lakshman, Ganguly, all these
Ganguly.
people had gone out. And then the core had what? Sachin left, probably Harbhajan, Yuvraj, Dhoni. These people were still left, but it was a pretty young look side. A lot of new players coming in. Rohit Sharma made his first big mark at international cricket in that particular tournament. We had Uthappa, Srishant, Ishant
Praveen
Sharma,
Kumar,
a very
I don't forget that spell
Praveen.
in the final.
Yeah, we'll come to that. We'll talk about that. So yeah, basically a very new look Indian team, and Australia, a definite strong competitors down under always. And we start off with a longish tri series, something which is very rare for today's times. So each of the teams played 8 matches, and it was India and Australia to face off in a 3-match final. And I thought, I mean, it's a clear Australia win because they had such superstars through and through the attack. But in the first match we won, Sachin scoring a century in a final SS after so many years,
And winning
and
and winning the game.
winning the game. And he had Rohit Sharma for a partnership. So that was the first time when we saw Rohit Sharma create an impact. Although back then he used to bat in the middle order. And the second match was then again Sachin with a 90, and we were able to win the match. And this time Praveen Kumar with a 4-wicket haul, as you were saying. So I mean, I remember the first time when we won the match when Rohit and Sachin staged that partnership and we were able to chase down the target. I thought, we just got lucky for a match. We still
Yeah,
have two matches to go. For the
yeah,
second match, we were able to seal it. And this was like the point where MS Dhoni established himself as a bona fide captain, even in ODIs and
yeah,
not just
right.
T20Is. So that is the
Yeah.
big hallmark of this particular series.
Yeah, I remember this series specifically because of Sachin. I mean, of course, with Dhoni around and his captaincy after all the adulation that he had gone after winning the seven T20 World Cup. But Sachin had also a lot of question marks on him with all his contemporaries being moved out of the team, and he was very gritty in the Test series, and he was one of the best performers there. I remember he had a beard on because he had some skin infection, and but he looked gritty as well by his look as well that he's going to go out there and I remember one of the league games, India was chasing 160 versus Australia, and he played those three ferocious straight drives uh, of Brett Lee and Chappell and Ian Chappell and Tony Greig were in the commentary, and Ian Chappell, who previously in the year had said that Sachin should look himself in the mirror and think whether he's good enough or he's Sachin anymore or not. And I think it was apt that he was in the commentary and seeing that, okay, he's turning on the heat now. And then in the finals, he played two spectacular innings, one of the best in Tri Series history for India. They're going to talk about more Tri Series, India, Australia, and more Sachin stuff. But this was just amazing. And I think against that green and gold Australian team, Tri Series down under 2-0, best of three. I think that's quite a big achievement. CB Series actually stands sometimes forgotten almost now after 17 years because we have won ICC events and all. But that was a big win.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that SS, you were talking about some other tri series. Do you want to take back and talk us through another of your storylines?
Yeah, we go 10 years previous to 2007-8 one. We go to 98, the four Coca-Cola Cups we won. But yeah, the most famous one was India, Australia, New Zealand in Sharjah in the month of April when the temperatures hit more than 40 degrees Celsius. The Australian team, Steve Waugh, Mark Waugh, Ricky Ponting, Tom Moody, Michael Bevan, Damon Fleming, Kastrovic, great team, very good team. They had made the finals of the 96 one. India, as we would know, as 90s kids, and a lot of our viewers probably are 90s kids, such independent team was Sachin or bust for us. Sachin was like, okay, if that's the case, I will take everything in my hand and I will guide you to, I can guide you. So India had to in order to qualify for the final, their last game was against Australia. They had to chase 284. But in order to qualify, they had to make some 260, 255 odd. And that's when the desert storm, the famous desert storm came in because there was literally a desert storm, but the real metaphorical desert storm was how Sachin took a liking to the Aussie bowling single-handedly. We all remember the Tony Greig commentary of all the sixes taking on Shane Warne, taking on Damien Fleming, taking on Moody, Kastrovic, everyone. And somehow he takes them to the final with that blistering 143. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, ODI innings. Uh,
Definitely.
He, he had a spectacular year, but even in that spectacular year of almost making 2,000 runs, that was the innings. But then, okay, I can top it up 2 days later on his, I think it was his 25th birthday on 24th April 1998. Australia again batted first, I think made 272. And this time Sachin backed it up 134. Uh, Good innings by Nayan Mungia as well, and good support act by Azharuddin. But India chased it down just because the Master Blaster was in full flow. That was the innings, and those were the times. And even the great Shane Warne had to say that Sachin gives me nightmares because he had taken him a liking to him in the Test series as well, and then in Sharjah as well. I mean, if you ask an Indian cricket fan, especially who has seen Indian cricket team in the 80s, 90s, or later in 2000s, that Coca-Cola Cup and those 2 days, 143 and 134, the Desert Storm, is etched in cricketing folklore of the world, if not Indian cricket. I mean, it was just amazing treat to watch those sixes and that one-man domination that a one man can take. And I think that's Sachin in 90s when he used to attack, attack, attack. I mean, that was one of the great memories of childhood cricket watching and also of Indian cricket as well. I mean, amazing, amazing.
Yeah, that was the peak of Sachin Tendulkar, 1998. Most number of runs anyone has scored in a calendar year in ODI cricket. And by the likes of it, I don't think that's a record that's going to be broken anytime soon. Shubman Gill came very close to breaking that a couple of years back, but we saw
Yeah,
how far he still was. And 9 centuries that year, and so many against Australia. Not a weak attack for sure. So it
yeah,
was complete domination by Sachin. And Desert Storm somehow just captures everyone's imaginations. The
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
shots he
yeah.
played is what I remember.
Coming down the track, people trying to bowl negative lines, but he was still able to take. I mean, he was unleashed, and he felt that attack was the
Unleashed.
only form of defense, and he just went after the Aussie bowling. And 2 days in a row, and they had no
And
answers.
and he was literally carrying the Indian batting attack all on his own shoulders. So that
Yeah,
further adds
exactly.
on to what he did.
Exactly. But yeah, so that was the third third story, and this time the second story from and featuring a lot of Sachin. Sachin, I guess, features in the next story as well, but there were some other big impact players as well. So over to you for the next one, maybe.
Yeah, we go a few years forward in time to 2011. And this is the World Cup going on in India. And eventually, we know India wins the cup, but then they face Australia in quarterfinals. And just to give some context of how big a match against Australia in World Cups is, the last time Australia lost a knockout match in World Cup was back in 1996. That was the final against Sri Lanka, and that is how dominant they had been in world cricket. 15 years, and they had not lost a single World Cup knockout match. They won 3 World Cups in a row: 99, 2003, 2007, and coming into 2011. Although we know India were a slightly better team, but then you always got to defeat Australia. It's always a big statement win, and you have to go through Australia to be able to win that World Cup. And India faced them in the quarterfinals. Uh, kind of like Ponting's last hurrah towards the fag end of his career. Definitely his last World Cup. And he has an innings befitting of that. He scores a century. It's a tricky pitch in Ahmedabad. So India has what 260 odd to chase, but
Yeah,
we falter and we see that pressure coming in. But then Yuvraj, the man of the series, and of course, we know in the hindsight that he was playing with a disease, playing that knock, taking us home. And then Suresh Raina coming in as a tactical change in the recent matches after Pathan wasn't clicking. That finally coming to fruition as it was the partnership between Yuvraj and Raina. I think 80 odd runs towards the end, which
yeah,
took us home. And I mean, you just got to make that statement win against Australia to show that you deserve the cup, and that is what
yeah.
they did. And we know that 2011 is such a golden part of Indian cricketing history after 83 winning the cup again almost after 30 years in 2011 and further cementing Dhoni's legacy as a captain. So that has got to be for me one of the most impressive storylines when it comes to India Australia encounters.
And that was the game I felt after we won that I had the confidence that, okay, we were the pre-tournament favorites. We were playing against Australia. We had to go through them. And as you mentioned, you have to go through them if you want to win a tournament. Australia were not as elite as a team as they were in the previous decade, but they were the Champions Trophy winners in 2009 as well. So you know that they had, when it comes to the big tournaments, they will turn up, and Ponting turned up like anything. But it was one of the most nervy matches I remember following as a fan. Uh, Sachin and I mean Sehwag was starting in the blistering fashion as he started all the World Cup games. Sean Tate came to the fore. I think Sachin got out after making a 50, and then I think Gambhir and Yuvraj were involved in a couple of really close run-out situations. Somehow survived. It was really nervy watching this, but then they somehow got clicking, 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 and then yeah, as you mentioned, the Rana. I think Dhoni got out very cheaply as well. He was struggling through those matches as well. But Rana and Yuvraj, and I remember Yuvraj's celebration at the end at the ground on his knees and just clicking. I was like Kohli at MCG in the World T20 against Pakistan, that kind of a celebration at the end. And after that, no, that we have a good chance. Now we have a really good chance of winning the tournament. Of course, things had to happen versus Pakistan and Sri Lanka, but that was an epic game. And yeah, Ahmedabad, very tacky
But
pitch on red soil.
also imagine the kind of pressure that they would be facing,
Yeah,
like home World
yeah.
Cup after so many years. A quarterfinal exit would have been massive, a
It could
massive
have been
blow.
Sachin's last game. It could have been Sachin's last game because if because Sachin played along because World Cup and all that. I think if he didn't win the World Cup, Sachin would have retired, and that could have been a game where Sachin retired straight away. So it was
for sure.
massive. And at that point of time, it was always like, will this be Sachin's last game? Will this be Sachin's last game? Is it over? Because this is like the strongest Indian team going into the World Cup. And we'll talk about other World Cup finals, but this one was like, yeah, we can actually do pretty well around it. So yeah, I mean,
But
it's a big win.
I like the trend SS where you drop in some hints of the next stories.
Easter eggs.
So over to you for the over to you for the third story SS. What have you got in store
Yeah,
for us?
yeah, we got another World Cup game. This time a big final. Change of scenery, not Ahmedabad, but Joburg, Bull Ring versus Australia, the great Australian team of the early 2000s. It was a Saurav Ganguly-led team, having lost to Australia in the in the league stage, where a lot of bad memories come because we got bowled out cheaply, and then there was a lot of ruckus outside a lot of cricketers' houses as well because the Indian media was happy with it, and the fans as well. But then we went on a spree, a lot of wins, reached the final against that Australian team, Hayden Gilchrist, Bunting, Beeman, Martin. You had to be on 100%. And even that 100% wouldn't be good enough. Probably like the modern women's ODI team, something like that. That was the aura of that great Australian team. Ganguly won the toss and decided to bowl first. And the first over, Zahir Khan spraying it all over. You knew the nerves were there, and great Australian batting. I think 140 by Ponting, big innings by Gilchrist, absolutely fluid innings by Martin. They made 359 for two, and we knew the match was done. But we had hope on that one guy who had done it in '98, who would do it 2008. Who had done it who will do it in 2011 as well? Will Sachin do it? He was a top scorer in the league game as well, where we got bowled out cheaply as well. But he got out pretty early on, trying to pull McGrath, as McGrath, the old nemesis of Sachin, cotton bowled, and then from there on, it was a very tall order. The rain gods really tried to help us. When Hogg and Lehman were brought in, Sehwag was smacking. Sehwag made 82, but we knew that was only a flicker of hope, and it's the hope that kills us, and that's what killed us. We got bowled out for 234. I think Dravid made 47. We lost by what, 135 runs or something. And yeah, it pained for a very, very, very long time till the pain that you are going to tell us about, which is the biggest pain ever. But till that point arrives, the 2003 final was a big pain. To be really honest with you, I never felt we were more than 20% favorite to win that game. And I will have to ask you, what did you make of the toss decision did Ganguly make? If we had won the toss and decided to bat first, would that have increased our chances to maybe 40%? What do you think about that?
Um, I think probably the reason why Ganguly decided to bowl first was because we were chasing well. Our batting was clicking, so probably he had more confidence that ways and not really playing the opponent, playing the situation. So he was more backing basis what the team felt internally because we chased amazingly well against Pakistan. Uh, Again, an amazing bowling attack, Waqar, Wasim, Shoaib Akhtar, and we completely demolished them. Sachin was in the form of his life at that point of time. So, I mean, you got to back him. So, probably I think that is what went on in Ganguly's mind at the toss. But as you said, we weren't the favorites, and there was a clear delta between India and the Australian side back then. So, I would say 2 out of 10 times is when Australia gives us an inch, and we got to take that in case we want to turn the match
Yeah,
and win it. But otherwise, 8 out of 10 times Australia just cruises through. And
yeah,
that is what happened. But then you also mentioned a few other points, as which was hope. I think hope everyone in India had. And a lot of it came from the NatWest series win a year back where
yeah,
we chased down 325, 326. We thought
yeah.
with Sachin clicking and
And a
if the
long
Indian
batting lineup till
team
number seven as
plays,
well.
yeah, and the long batting lineup, which didn't happen before. So
Yep.
Dravid taking up the gloves and giving us that luxury of having an extra batter. All of us felt that maybe, this is Sachin's night. He can pull off another desert storm. We can maybe just win this World Cup. But then McGrath putting that dagger in the hearts of every
Yeah,
Indian cricketing
yeah.
fan, at that pained.
And also because you know that Sehwag will take care of the run rate. So if you had a decent start, and you knew that was a great surface. Some years later, we'll find out how great a surface was when South Africa chased 434 on the same wicket against Australia. So you knew that
Absolutely.
a big partnership could have held, and maybe somebody like Jack Callis could have said in the dressing room, like Dinesh Mongia saying to all the Indian people that, yeah, I think the Aussies are 40 runs short. that could have that could have turned it
was
in our favor. Yeah.
Mongia Mongia was also an all-rounder, right? He could bowl a bit of spin here and there.
Yeah, he could bowl some SLA, I think. But yeah,
Yeah.
but there were a couple of dodgy decisions as well. I still see some old videos, grainy videos on Instagram where Harbhajan is like trapping Ponting or Gilchrist, and I was like, okay, maybe pre-DRS era that could have been a big what if. But yeah, Australia were too good. I think even with 300 they would have found a way. They found so many ways to win the match. But yeah, it pains, but maybe not as painful as the memory that you are going to share with us. The final story from your side, AB.
Yeah, this time we come very close to the present, and we are actually coming close to a 2-year anniversary of that particular
Uh,
event. It is 19th November 2023, the finals of 2023 Cricket World Cup in India. We are again at Ahmedabad at the Narendra Modi Stadium, and we have the Indian team, which is arguably the best white ball side which has been assembled in the recent times. The conversations are not around whether India is going to win it or not. The conversations are around how can any team even give this team a competition. That is how
yeah,
strong we were going into that World Cup and in that World Cup. I remember everyone was clicking. I mean, that had
yeah,
never happened before, at least not in my cricket viewing time. At the top, you had Rohit Sharma giving us those starts. We had Shubman Gill taking the perfect support. He had the most amazing year that he has had yet. And then we had Virat Kohli in the form of his life, scoring hundreds for fun, the highest run getter in a single edition of World Cup ever, eclipsing Sachin in 2003, I believe. And then we had Shreyas Iyer, KL Rahul playing the perfect middle order role. We had Hardik Pandya earlier, and then we had Jadeja, Shami picking up wickets for fun. We had Bumrah in peak form. I mean, the entire lineup was through and through performing whatever they needed to do. And then we come in Ahmedabad. A few events that happened. One, reading the pitch wrong. Second, Gulbis effect. We'll talk about that. And then a few iconic moments. And we knew what happened. So starting off with the first one, which was reading the pitch wrong. I mean, it's like so weird. At home, we are reading the pitch incorrectly. Everyone knew that uh, batting batting first is what we wanted to do, and but then Australia wins the toss, puts us in a surprise, and they select to bat second. And they apparently read the pitch better. They knew that it would probably bat better under the lights if they can see off that initial overs of seam bowling. And we batted first, and we saw what happened. It wasn't an easy pitch to bat on, and we went completely into that shell. And this brings the second point, which is the Gulbis effect. I know, SS, your affinity to this term, and you have read so much about it. So I'll give you the honors of talking to us about what this Gulbis
yeah.
effect is and what that did to us on that particular day.
Yeah, shout out to Jared Kimber for bringing Evan Gilbis to pop cult status. I don't think ever Evan Gilbis achieved so much fame by his cricketing prowess. But yeah, that's the term that came out from I think a BBL final actually, and which we talked in a certain different term. We say batters don't bowl, bowlers don't bat. And when Hardik Pandya gets injured, which is a two-dimensional player, or what MSK Prasad would say, a 3D player of the real sort. So what happens is then if wickets fall, you start to play conservatively because you know that you don't have the lengthy batting. And that's what led after the wickets fell. Kohli and Rahul, just because maybe it's a World Cup final, maybe it's the Galbis effect that they tried to play a bit more conventionally but more conservatively as well. And that led us to probably an underpass score. We needed 20-25 runs and then why? Because in the first place, our batters don't bowl that much. And the only guy that we got injured and Hardik Pandya was such a big miss in the final, in because even though the surface might have not been, he might not have been used so much in the bowling, but because of the balance he provided, and we underscored, and then yeah, I mean, yeah, they read the pitch. I mean, it's just unbelievable that George friggin Bailey read the pitch better than our own support staff, which had captain of Gujarat Titans playing for us, Shubman Gill. I mean, that goes just goes beyond
Amazing.
me. I still cannot fathom this fact that how did they read this better? But yeah, the Gilbis effect. I mean, essentially, India played conservatively in the batting, and there was a reason behind it because they didn't want to expose themselves. But because of that, they landed up short, and then Travis Head came to the fore.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the Gulbis effect, we never felt that earlier in the tournament because the top order was always piling on runs, and Mohammad
Yeah,
Shami, who came in after Pandya got injured, was picking wickets for fun. It was only in the final when the real depth of Indian batting attack was tested, and that is where
because Rohit
we kind
didn't
of
fire.
faltered. We saw. Actually, that is the first iconic moment that I wanted to speak of. Rohit did have that initial ignition, but then someone named Travis Head picked off that amazing catch. Very Kapil Dev-esque in that particular match. And that completely halted the Indian batting order. Like we saw Kohli and Rahul get into that shell when they were batting together. And we could never fire after that. We put on 240 odd. But then we saw what happened when Bumrah and Shami were bowling. The ball was just swinging around. And I thought that dismissal of Steve Smith was when I again had that hope that we'll be able
Yeah,
to pull this off, we'll be able to win this match. But then it was so painful to watch Bumrah beat Head again and again
yeah,
outside his edge and not getting that edge. And then eventually Head went on to score 140 odd, probably the biggest
yeah,
World Cup innings in the finals. And yeah, I
yeah,
mean, that pain still is there, very fresh
yeah.
2 years later. We still talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. And probably we'll keep talking till we beat Australia in an MCG ODI World Cup final, which I don't know, God knows when it will happen. But I think,
When
speaking
it
of
will
Travis
happen.
Head, I think he's the most infuriating cricketer for an Indian, I think. Because first of all, you always think that you can get him out, but he always scores runs against you in all the biggest matches. He surpassed David Boone and Javed Miandad and Saeed Anwar and Sanat Jayasuriya in the list of the most impactful player versus India and the most infuriating to watch. But he always, even in the
The
latest
last,
BGT, was scoring runs against him.
the last World Test Championship, where he essentially took the match away from us.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, this pain can probably it's the biggest pain, and that's why it you had to wait through all of the podcast to listen to this one because this is the most impactful in our sense. But AB, we have given out our three stories each, ascending to descending in terms of impact. But any honorable mentions that come to your mind?
Yeah, one series right before the 2019 World Cup, where India was a fairly strong team. I think we were the second best team after England in that World Cup. We just had a 5 ODI series against Australia at home. I thought we are going to steamroll them. We were leading by 2-0, but then they made a comeback with some very, very strange protagonists, and they took that series
Yeah.
away from us 3-2. So that is one story that I would give honorable mentions to. How about you, SS?
Yeah, and just speaking on your Ashton Turner and Adam Zampa and Berendorf and all the Jai Richardson, I think that gave us the flavor that probably we are not how
We are
strong
not
we
that
think
strong.
we are, and then the World Cup actually found the reality. Yeah, on my side, I go back to a World Cup game, 99 actually, Australia and India. That's where the Australian dominance started for well over 15 years. But Australia and India both reached the Super Six with 0 points. So they had to win effectively all the games. And Australia played India. Mark Waugh, as ever, made a lot of runs, just like the 96 game. Made Australia made big runs, I think 280 or something, because everyone got runs. And then India, I think, yeah, it felt okay. Ganguly and Sachin, maybe we can make a match of it because it is effectively a game that we have to win. But McGrath and Fleming, absolutely. And McGrath, the old nemesis, again, got Sachin out, got behind, and India was 17 for 5. And that's when I switched off my TV. Saw after 1 hour, Jadeja and Robin were going well, but then, yeah, shut it off. There was no chance for us to win. Jadeja finished up with a
It
century. I
was
think
too
Robin
much
Singh
for
made
them.
some 70 odd, but yeah, we were too much for them. We lost by, I think, 50, 60 runs or something. And yeah, we were effectively knocked out, even though we won the game versus Pakistan a few days later at Old Trafford, which we always win. But essentially, we were knocked out of the World Cup. So that is my honorable mention of a great India-Australia game.
Yeah, again, McGrath getting Sachin in a
So
World Cup match.
some things don't change. Travis said scoring runs against us in a big game and McGrath getting Sachin in a big game. That's how India-Australia series. Hopefully, better times to come and better results in the current ODI series after losing the first one. So, there you have it, guys. That was our storyline episode on India and Australia and the great encounters of the past and the storied history when it comes to the white ball ODI game. For more such content, keep following us on Instagram and YouTube, as well as on all podcasting platforms. We'll see you next week. Till then, goodbye.